Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's sermon prep. Now, traditionally, the Thursday of the sixth week of Easter was known as Ascension Thursday because if you count the days, that's when Jesus Christ has finished his earthly ministry and now he goes back to the house of the Father. So on Thursdays, we would celebrate what is called Ascension Thursday. But now it has our bishops' conference, and many bishops' conferences around the world have moved this day to a Sunday. So no, we no longer celebrate Ascension Thursday, we now celebrate Ascension Sunday, which previously was the seventh week of Easter. The seventh Sunday of Easter, rather. And that's where we're going to this coming weekend. We'll be celebrating the feast of the Ascension of the Lord in year C. Our first reading is from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 1, verses 1 to 11, which gives us exactly the account. Luke gives us the account of how Jesus ascends into heaven. And our psalm is from Psalm 47. The Lord has gone up with shouts of joy. The Lord goes up with trumpet blast. And our second reading is going to be from the letter to the Hebrews. It's going to be from chapter 9, verses 24 to 28, and chapter 10, verses 19 to 23. That's where we look at Christ now entering what the author to the letter of the Hebrews calls a holy sanctuary that is not made by hands. In our gospel reading, we'll be reading from the 24th chapter of Luke's gospel, verses 46 to 53. And this is where we also get an account of Jesus going up into heaven and how that took place. So, what then does this mean? The Ascension, Jesus rising up back to the Father, it's not an end. And that's what we are looking at in these readings. From the Acts of the Apostles, as St. Luke gives that account of how Christ goes up into heaven. As soon as he's taken up into heaven, and we are told that the disciples are standing there looking up, and then there comes these two men that stood with them in white robes, and they say to them, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into heaven? This Jesus who was taken up from you into heaven will come in the same way as you saw him going up into heaven." In other words, these guys were telling them, don't have your gaze too much onto the sky. Don't forget what is your ministry here on earth. Christ is going to come back in the same way. And as we prepare for his second coming, our eyes should be here on our brothers and on our sisters, working as it were towards that second coming of the Lord, preparing ourselves as it were for his second coming to be with us. The second, the gospel, the responsorial psalm rather, we see there this hymn, if you like, of joy. All people clap your hands, cry to God with shouts of joy, for the Lord the Most High is awesome, the great King over all the earth. Grateful as it were for this, not just this ministry of Jesus, but as he goes up to sit at the right hand of the Father, after having completed whatever he had come on earth to do. And that's why we keep responding. God has gone up with shouts of joy. The Lord goes up with trumpet blast. Our second reading from the letter to the Hebrews, it says that Christ has entered not a sanctuary made with hands, a copy of the true one, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God on our behalf. As Christ goes up into heaven, and we are told that he sits on God on our behalf. But there's something very telling about that reading. As Catholics, we believe that every Mass is a sacrifice of Calvary, that at every Mass we celebrate what Christ did on that very day when he died for mankind. But for us as Catholics also, it's not only the passion, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus. His ascension into heaven, into now this different sanctuary, not made up of human hands, to appear on our behalf, to take that sacrifice of Calvary and offer it up to God in this new temple, this temple that now exists outside of space and outside of time. And that is why it is possible for every Catholic priest to stand on the altar, offer a sacrifice, and it becomes as effective as that sacrifice of Calvary, because Christ has taken it outside the realm of space and of time. Hence, all over the world, we can celebrate the same thing in the same way, and it pleases God in the same way. It was important that Jesus Christ ascends to the Father to bring to fulfillment his sacrifice, but also the thousands of sacrifices of the Mass that are offered in the Church throughout time. And then finally, our Gospel reading, Jesus is taken up into heaven as well. Almost a repetition, if you like, of what we hear in the first reading. And it's from Luke chapter 24. Jesus says to his disciples at the opening of our Gospel, "Thus it is written that Christ should suffer and on the third day rise from the dead, and that repentance and forgiveness of sins should be preached in his name to all nations, beginning from Jerusalem." And he tells his apostles that they are witnesses to these things, and his ministry amongst them. And we are told that when he has blessed them, he parted from them, and he was taken up into heaven. And they worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in the temple blessing God. The ascension of Christ is not a sad occasion. It's joyful because, number one, it means that he's going to exist now in a different way among us, in his body and his blood at the sacrifice of the Mass. But also that now our mission begins. Now he's gone away, but he has given us the power. He has told us how to do it, and he has given us an example of how to do it. Now we go out there full of that Spirit of Christ, and we change the world. The ascension means that we don't just gaze up into heaven. It means that we work amongst our brothers and our sisters. So that is what we're looking forward to as we celebrate this coming weekend, the Ascension of the Lord. And we're looking forward to seeing you in person and online. And until then, we take care. Bye-bye.